Part 35. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 344. Baker, who was about to dodge, gritted his teeth and resisted the urge to dodge. Standing on the spot, he stretched his right palm forward and his eyes flashed with silver light. A twisted silver vortex appeared out of thin air on his palm. The vortex is more than half a person tall, constantly shining with silvery light, as if it is made of countless melted silver. Boom! The first Fukasawa giant crocodile hit the whirlpool hard. Then it sank directly into it and disappeared completely. Then came the second head and the third head. Baker's stone eyes continued to quickly move the vortex in his hand, trying to block all the Fukasawa giant crocodiles that kept rushing around. But after all, it is impossible to block them all. Finally. Bang! Once the black line hit his back hard, he was shocked all over. Garen looked at the silver vortex on Baker's stone-eyed hand from a distance. His face looked a little ugly. The Fukasawa giant crocodile that was knocked into the whirlpool seemed to be torn apart by a huge twisting force. Although it was very slow, it was losing contact with him. He looked at Baker's stone eyes, which had contained 5 Fukasawa giant crocodiles in a row. The silver vortex finally couldn't hold on anymore and collapsed. Baker's stone-eyed face was also slightly blue, as if he was seriously ill. The light of the silver totem on his body was constantly being hit by the black thread crazily. The Fukasawa giant crocodiles imitated angels' tactics and bit their opponents with continuous high-speed impacts, making them exhausted and running for their lives, bringing out the essence of group battles to the extreme. But just as the vortex on his right hand disappeared, Baker's stone eye actually started to release the vortex on his left hand again. And the totem light he was struck by obviously showed no signs of weakening. Humph! Garen snorted coldly. The two-headed lizard dragon at his feet suddenly pounced on one of its heads and bit into Baker's stone eye with its bloody mouth. The huge head's fangs alone are as long as half a human. One bite is enough to completely chew up Baker's stone eye, and it can be chewed into pieces with just a little chewing. The shadow of the huge mouth completely shrouded Baker's stone eyes in shadow. Call. The huge strong wind swept hard towards Baker's stone eye, and he was about to raise a vortex to aim at the giant mouth. Roar. Suddenly, a huge roar erupted from the huge mouth, shaking his whole body to numbness. The vortex in his hand suddenly collapsed, making his whole body dizzy and weak. I can't hear anything with both ears. One of the two-headed lizard dragon's abilities is Dragon Roar. It allows them, who are not very fast, to hunt prey easily. The prey's whole body senses are shocked and disabled, making it impossible to detect the approaching danger. This terrifying ability allowed the two-headed lizard dragons to dominate the airspace in ancient times, even though they cannot fly. But no flying creature dared to fly over them. The huge bloody mouth bit directly into Baker's stone eye. The mouth was opened as high as it was, and countless fine and sharp teeth were clearly visible inside, with a lot of flesh and blood residue remaining on it. Baker's stone eyes could almost smell the overpowering stench. Finally, his eyes suddenly shot out 2 beams of silver light, which converged directly to form a silver light group, blocking the front of the giant mouth. The giant mouth collided with the silver ball of light as tall as a person. Bang! As if it hit a hard object, the two-headed lizard dragon whined and took 2 steps back. The silver light group also dimmed slightly, obviously suffering some damage. But immediately, the silver light melted quickly revealing the contents inside. A silver-colored creature that looked like a hound appeared in front of Baker's stone eyes. The weirdest thing about it is that its face is not the face of a hound at all, but a ball of silver swirling fluid that is still spinning and flowing, as if there is only the silver fluid in the entire body. The silver vortex continues to extend inward, and it seems that one can see from the head all the way to the innermost part of the body. This whirlpool hound is as tall as a person, standing in front of Baker's stone eyes, and has silver white hair all over its body. Whirlpool beast, Vindman on the side immediately recognized this creature. I didn't expect that such a theoretical totem would be developed. Who is this Baker Stone Eye? What is the Uzumaki beast? Can Shia win? At some point, Andalou and Hathaway came to Windman's side, standing with Mark El-Adni and others. Hathaway asked worriedly. The Whirlpool Beast is a very special high-level totem among animal totems. It is a theoretical model built by the masters of the Silver Lantern Masters Workshop in order to artificially achieve aura. It is said to be the animal totem closest to aura. The general three types the totem is no match for it at all. Vindman explained solemnly, its ability is a distortion force field, which can swallow all living creatures into its stomach and turn them into distortion power after digestion. Don't look at how much Shia has. Type 2 totems, but once there is a head-on confrontation, the power of the Vortex Beast cannot be compared to these Type 2. Now it depends on how the two-headed lizard will respond. So, in terms of actual strength, Shia is still weaker than Baker Stone Eyes, Hathaway asked carefully. Not bad, Vindman nodded. So is there anyone else who can step in and help? A wry smile appeared on Vindman's face. I tried to contact my own power, but to no avail. Both of my old friends are only Type 2 and can't intervene. That's the strength of Type 3 and Du Jian. Master Du Jian heard these words in the shadows. She looked at the miserable and serious injuries on her body and remained silent for a while. Garen's expression was cold as he looked at the Uzumaki beast in front of Baker's Stone Eyes. The Whirlpool Beast is very good. It's rare to encounter the legendary powerful totem. In just 10 seconds, 7 or 8 Fukasawa giant crocodiles were swallowed by the whirlpool on the face of the Uzumaki beast. The remaining Fukasawa giant crocodiles only dared to surround them on the outside and did not dare to come closer. If Type 1 totems are just ordinary beasts with the light of the totem, then Type 2 totems are stronger, faster, powerful creatures with some special abilities. The third type of totem is a special ability that has completely become the main theme of combat. Its powerful type can completely replace hand-to-hand combat and has overwhelming power. The Uzumaki beast is such an existence, and the two-headed lizard dragon is only physically powerful, and in terms of evolutionary height, it is actually not as good as the Uzumaki beast. Garen stood on the back of the two-headed lizard dragon, his thoughts spinning rapidly. If you can take the last blow, then I will return it to you, Berlina, he said loudly. Do you keep your word? Baker's Stone Eyes asked coldly. Of course, Garen nodded lightly. Then come on, Stone Eyes. Baker stood up straight, but couldn't help but cover his mouth. He let out a sound, and a trace of blood spilled from between his fingers. Garen's eyes narrowed slightly, and the two-headed lizard dragon at his feet looked up to the sky and roared. Ouch! The huge snake neck casts two black shadows in the sunlight. The huge mouth on its right side suddenly swooped down. There was a faint red glow on the edge of the giant tooth. Call! With a blast of wind, the snake's head was very fast and rushed in front of Baker's Stone Eyes. The bloody mouth opened directly, and it was bitten instantly like a bear trap. Baker's Stone Eyes were fully concentrated, and his hands simultaneously condensed a silver vortex. At the same time, the vortex beast on the side also shot out silver liquid from its face, converging into the silver vortex. With all his strength, he pushed the whirlpool forward. Click! A crisp sound suddenly spread throughout the audience. There were faint exclamations from the sidelines, which were the sounds of disbelief made by many people. A huge white flying dragon emerged silently from behind Baker's Stone Eye. The white dragon lowered its elegant long neck and bit into Baker's Stone Eye's waist from behind with its huge mouth. The gray breath that overflowed from his mouth was constantly counteracting with the silver liquid behind his stone eyes. He looked down at his waist in disbelief. He was clearly aware of the threat behind him and had set up magical protection in advance, but he was vulnerable under this huge mouth and was directly offset by something. The silver light in his eyes trembled violently, and Baker's Stone Eyes seemed to be enduring extremely severe pain. In front of him is a huge two-headed lizard dragon, its huge mouth biting hard on the silver vortex. Behind him was an equally huge white dragon biting his waist. Cha! There was a small cracking sound from the totem light on the waist. "It's over," Garen said calmly, "it's a pity that you couldn't block this blow." The whole place was silent. No one expected that there was a giant Type 3 totem lurking behind Baker's stone eyes, and judging from the halo around it, it turned out to be an aura-shaped totem beast. Some people began to wonder if there was a Type 3 totem master hidden somewhere. Otherwise, how could one person control so many powerful totems? Two giant beasts more than 10 meters long, one in front and one in back, one black and one white, occupy the whole place, like a terrifying scene only found in myths. Garen lightly jumped off the dragon's back and looked straight at Baker's stone eyes opposite. His face at this time seemed like a devil in everyone's eyes, carrying a natural intimidation and fear. Surrounded by giant beasts, his whole body seemed to carry an inexplicable huge aura. No one dared to make a sound at will, not even to breathe loudly, for fear of attracting the attention of the two giant beasts in the field. At this time, Baker's stone eyes suddenly sneered in a low voice. He lowered his face and couldn't see the expression on his face clearly. But his whole body was shaking with laughter. "In the name of me, Baker Stone Eye Monolito, everyone present in this manner will die." At the last sentence, he suddenly raised his head, and his face was covered with dense black veins, lying on his face like a small snake. Superior. Sunflower. Boom. A ball of extremely dazzling golden light suddenly bloomed from his body. Aurora secret spell. Baker Stone Eye's hands and 10 fingers frantically carved spell symbols in the air in front of him. The symbols were of different sizes. After weaving and writing, they quickly faded and disappeared. A huge golden tree suddenly formed around his body. The golden tree is more than 30 meters high. Among the densely packed golden leaves on the tree crown, there are small golden flowers everywhere, emitting dazzling golden light like the sun. Baker Stone Eye's entire body seemed to be the foundation of a big tree, inside the transparent trunk. His hands are constantly carving a large number of golden symbols and spells. Every dissipated golden magic symbol seems to be the energy source of the big tree. The carving speed of his 10 fingers has reached the level of 5 per second. This has simply surpassed the master level carving speed and reached an unprecedented high speed level. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 345. In the golden light, slender golden whips flew out from the center of a large number of golden flowers, with spikes all over their bodies. These golden whips began to become thicker and thicker, and their entire bodies emitted astonishing high temperatures. Some nearby stones melted quickly, the wood was charred and burned, and the grass quickly withered and turned into black ashes. Sunflower, Angel hid in the dark, looking at the huge golden tree with a dull face. Plant totem. It's actually the 3 strongest totems of the plant system. It's over. This is terrible. At the edge of the manor, the 2 masters, Barbafia, who had just ran out of the laboratory, also saw this huge golden tree from a distance. This is the sunflower tree? Hasn't it been completely exterminated by the Royal Alliance long ago? How is it possible that it still exists now? Bar's wrinkled old face was full of astonishment. Bafia looked ugly on the side. Once the sunflower tree unfolds, the entire 3-kilometer radius around it will be prohibited from entering and exiting. It will only unfold naturally after the sunflower tree has completely eliminated all hostile creatures inside. This is one of the strongest abilities among the 3 types of spiritual transformation. It is which master is kidding here? Vined Man looked up at the golden tree with calm eyes. Recalling the memories of the past, facing death at this time, I felt an unprecedented sense of fulfillment and tranquility. Du Jian quietly appeared next to him, leaning on him with gentle eyes. Master. Thank you for all your hard work these years. Vined Man gently hugged Du Jian. You've done a lot of wrong things with me. I don't regret it, Du 11 whispered. Vindman smiled and looked at his son in the field. Xia, Du Jian, and I will open a gap for you. You should seize the opportunity. At this time, countless golden long whips have grown up, facing the two giant beasts in front and back. Garen stood quietly on the ground, with the scorched black ground beneath his feet. After hearing Vindman's words, his expression did not change. Gap? No need. One of the strongest totems in the plant system? Haha. He slowly raised his hand and raised his head to the sky. Roar! Roar! Two huge dragon roars came from the sky. Everyone raised their heads unconsciously and looked directly above the manor. In the sky directly above, two huge and elegant white dragons swooped down quickly with a grey halo all over their bodies. The body of more than 10 meters long seemed to be pressed down hard by two boulders. Destroy him, White Dragon, Garen's cold voice suddenly sounded. Before he finished speaking, 4 giant beasts suddenly attacked at the same time inside and outside the golden halo. The grey-white petrified aura and breath collided with the dazzling golden whip of light. The two-headed lizard dragon's glowing red light bites fiercely towards the giant golden tree. Buzz. I couldn't hear anything, my ears seemed to be paralyzed all of a sudden, and the huge sound waves made everyone deaf. The giant white beast seemed to be lying in the sky above the manor, blocked by the golden light, and kept spitting out a large amount of grey breath. The entire manor was completely plunged into chaotic light, with grey and golden light splashing and escaping everywhere, and everything fell into disorderly destruction. Some people were unable to dodge and were directly turned into stone statues by the petrified breath, while others were rubbed a little by the golden whip and burned directly into coke and ashes. There were explosions, roars, the sound of the attic collapsing, the screams and screams of the crowd, and the roars and struggles of many totem beasts. All intertwined. The white manor was completely transformed into a flood of grey and gold. The fire had just ignited, and it might be completely petrified the next moment. Galen stood there with an indifferent expression. The Fukasawa giant crocodiles protected Windman, Hathaway, and others, and the two-headed lizard dragon also guarded them closely, because there was the red-armored woman named Berlina in his mouth. So he actually received the fewest attacks. The 3 petrified white dragons have completely broken through the resistance of the golden light whip and directly pressed the battle line against the golden sunflower tree. In mid-air, clusters of golden whips were continuously covered and dimmed by the petrified breath. Although 2 white dragons were seriously injured, there were too many spiritual totems after all, 3 in total, and a 2-headed lizard dragon beside them. 4 heads and 3 types of siege, and there are still people to coordinate. Even Baker Stone Eyes can no longer suppress it. The Baker Stone Eye in the tree trunk has bulging blood vessels, almost reaching its final limit. Blood is constantly flowing out of his eyes, ears, and nostrils, which is obviously a sign that the power of the totem has reached its extreme limit. It's over. Garen lowered his eyes. It's indeed over. Baker Stone Eyes raised his head and showed a strange smile. At this moment, a dark shadow suddenly appeared behind Garen. It's Talion. He was covered in blood, with 2 grey-white eagle wings growing on his back. He raised his hands at the same time to form a knife and stabbed Garen in the back of the head. Both palms have jagged white edges, and a faint white spiritual light spreads out, as if there is an indestructible and terrifying sharpness. It turned out to be spiritual light. Secret attack spell, Talion roared violently, and with a sneer from his palm, he actually directly pierced the light of Garen's body protecting totem. At the same time, a pitch-black figure sprang out from Garen's shadow, and stabbed Garen's lower body with 2 pitch-black curved blades in his hand, viciously and viciously. Click. The light of the totem shattered. Garen looked stunned. Windman and others on the sidelines also looked horrified. They stretched out their hands and wanted to shout, but it was too late. The Baker Stone Eyes in the tree trunk had a calm expression, and looked at Garen like a dead person. Boom! A huge white aura mixed with a trace of black streaks exploded. A huge white light group with a diameter of more than 10 meters was formed. The white light quickly dissipated, revealing the scene inside. How stupid, do you think you can defeat me like this? Garen stretched out his right hand and directly twisted Talion's neck with one hand and lifted him into the air. There was a sarcastic smile on his face. There was also a middle-aged man covered in darkness lying in front of him. The man was vomiting blood and staring at Garen in disbelief. It's impossible that all your trump cards have been exposed. How can you still have such a strong power? Who sent you here? Garen casually threw away Tareen, who was completely unconscious and on the verge of death, and looked at the man in black in front of him. His right palm was filled with huge and terrifying power. In the moment just now, he turned around to face the sneak attack of the two people. The powerful secret weapon combined with the terrifying power, just the moment of contact, the two people's offensive collapsed, and the white light faded. Before that, each of them was hit with a palm, and they were seriously injured and on the verge of death. My mission is to obtain Vindman's biotechnology, and I don't know anything about the rest. The man hurriedly spit out everything. He didn't even have time to summon the totem before the totem's light was completely destroyed. This Type 3 totem master seems a bit weird. It feels weaker than the ordinary Type 3 totem master. It seems that he did not improve himself. This reminded Garen of a special force within the Black Sky Society, the Elite Department. The Elite Department is all elite members, and it is the same independent department as the Military Department. Jace belongs to the Military Department, and apart from the Commander level and the Ghost Gate President, he is the strongest at his level. The Elite Department is weaker than the Military Department, but it should not be underestimated. There is also a Commander-level commander who commands everything. It is said that there are 2 elemental generals like Jace. There are quite a lot of lieutenant generals and brigadier generals, more than twice as many as those in the Military Department. Are you from the Elite Department? Garen suddenly asked. The man was stunned for a moment. How do you know? Garen smiled, stretched out his right hand suddenly, and flicked his finger between his eyebrows. Laugh. A bloody arrow shot out. The man raised his head and fell down, his eyes no longer full of energy. The golden light in the sky was gradually occupied by gray-white breath. This petrified airflow was like mist, mixed with the gray-white spiritual light of the petrified white dragon, and faintly covered most of the burning places in the manor. The fire quickly extinguished, turning the charcoal into gray-white stone. 2 petrified white dragons hovered over the manor, making a piercing cry. On the ground, a white dragon with broken wings squatted next to the 2-headed lizard dragon, quietly licking its wounds. The entire manor gradually fell into silence. Vindman and others were also completely relieved. The fierce attack still failed to hurt Garen, and no one saw what happened in the white light. But it was clear that Garen had one final trump card that was not exposed, and he won in the end. Garen stood alone, surrounded by giant beasts, looking at the golden tree that was gradually disappearing and fading. Countless golden light whips had completely collapsed. Baker's stone eyes were vomiting blood and he was half kneeling on the ground. The silver in his eyes kept flickering. Pa! 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 Garen slowly walked towards Baker's stone eye. Aren't you coming out yet? His gaze suddenly turned to the right side of Xian. A group of specially protected manor totem masters were standing there. These people looked stunned, as if they had no idea why he was looking here. Feeling the gazes of the giant beasts moving towards them at the same time, their expressions suddenly changed. Garen gently stroked the petrified white dragon beside him, which was lowering its head. He was not affected by the performance of these people, but still looked here calmly. After a long time, a man in white robes slowly walked out of the crowd. This is a very old middle-aged man with an old face, at least in his 50s. He had a short white beard and looked at Garin with complicated eyes. "Young man, there is no necessary conflict between us. You have greater potential than Stone Eyes. Why can't you join the great cause of reform? I can see that you are not interested in the royal family." He said this clearly, and it was very cruel. There were so many people from the royal alliance present, and when they heard this, their eyes suddenly became a little strange. Garin sneered. He did not kill Baker Stone Eyes. It was because of this man that the two petrified white dragons were now seriously injured. One had damaged wings, and the other had a broken forelimb and was bloody. The Fukasawa giant crocodile is completely useless in this level of battle. The middle-aged man in front of him was obviously a hidden person who protected Baker Sheehan and others all the way, and he was not sure about leaving him behind completely. However, Galleon's goal was achieved. This battle lowered Daiwa society's expectations for Baker Stone Eyes. He may still be trained as before, but the intensity will definitely not be as great as in history. This is an era where heroes emerge in large numbers, and those who cannot have the last laugh can only be passers-by in history. A little bit of decline may bring more qualitative changes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 346. Garin's eyes kept moving. The sunflower, the plant totem of Baker's Stone Eye, was completely damaged by the four-headed and three-type totems. It was not easy to repair it. The rarer a totem is, the more advanced it evolves, and the difficulty and cost of repairing it are a serious expense. Even if the plant-based totem claims to be able to repair itself naturally, it does not take a day or two. This period of time is enough for him to reach another level calmly. Suddenly a voice came from the side. It was actually Viscount Vindman standing on one side. The Viscount, a professor who had always been calm and stern, seemed to feel a lot more relaxed at this time, as if he had let go of a huge burden. "Let them go." The Viscount looked calm. There was a touch of sadness and memory in his tone. "You executioner." Baker Stone Eyes straightened up from the ground, feeling slightly agitated. "For your so-called experiment, you actually killed at least hundreds of people alive." Even Liana, this young man who had always been calm, finally lost his composure. The veins all over his body continued to expand, as if his body was covered with a large number of earthworm locusts. His voice was loud enough to be heard by most of the survivors throughout the estate. Because of Garin's cover, not many people died in the manor. Only a few people were hit by the aftermath, and most of them survived. "I will kill you sooner or later." Revenge for Liana. Baker Stone Eyes almost lost his mind. His eyes actually returned to normal black pupils, with a faint redness. At this time, there was no trace of totem light in his body, and all the totem power was used in activating the sunflower at the end. He looks like just an ordinary young man. I once asked the teacher how people should choose their own path when faced with the differences between ideals and reality. Vindman smiled bitterly. As long as people live in this life, they will not regret it after many years. Was the teacher's answer. I have never regretted my path. Vindman closed his eyes slightly. When I saw ordinary people struggling, resisting, and crying under the power of the totem light, but to no avail, I swore that we must develop something that allows ordinary people to resist the power of the totem. This is my promise to the teacher, so even if you kill me, I will still not regret it. That's nice to say, the middle-aged man in white robe sneered. Among the hundreds of people in the laboratory, do you dare to say that none of them died because of your animalistic desires? In other words, do you dare to let everyone go down and see your experiment? How many disgusting, dirty and bloody experiments are hidden in the center of the chamber? Vindman was speechless. Do 11 hugged him tightly and stretched out her snake-like tongue to gently lick his face. Even the woman who loves you the most has been transformed by you into an ugly appearance that is indistinguishable from a human being to a monster. Why don't people like you die as soon as possible? The middle-aged man in white robe said coldly and loudly. At this time, the entire manor had completely calmed down, and the cold wind was blowing up large amounts of grey dust on the ground. The others had already noticed the strange woman next to Vindman. After hearing this, someone noticed that Du Jian's lower body, which was covered by her skirt, was actually a snake's tail with a large number of tree roots intertwined. Andalou and Hathaway looked pale, as if they had heard a fantasy. When they saw the strange thing on Du Jian's body, they couldn't help but move away slightly. She was obviously frightened by Du Jian's strange behavior. "Uncle wouldn't do that, he's not like that," Hathaway murmured softly, as if she couldn't accept such a huge change at all. The two royal masters were standing on the edge of the ruins with cold faces. They were definitely not in a good mood. "Windman, you need to give us an explanation," Bar said loudly and coldly. Bafia on one side also looked ugly. There were so many totem masters present. All they had to do was control the totems and drill into the ground through the gap in the ruins. Soon, some of the totem masters who shared the vision finally couldn't bear it any longer and started muttering in low voices. For Vindman, the originally beloved lord, suddenly transformed into a murderous executioner. These people are more difficult to believe. Some people are keeping their eyes fixed on Garen on the field. Now the real say is actually Garen. This son of a viscount who was originally good for nothing has now become the one who decides the whole situation. The whispers around him were muffled, and Garen scanned the whole place. The beetles and deep swamp crocodiles that burrowed into the ground had shown him the experimental side of Viscount Vindman. Garen's mood was very complicated. Even he rarely saw the bloody scene in the underground laboratory. "I never thought Vindman would be such a person. Hundreds of people. They were killed just for their own experiments. We don't all have hundreds of people here, right? Who knows if he will suddenly use us for experiments one day." "Windman. I didn't expect you to be such a person," Bafia yelled angrily. "I will completely report your crimes in front of His Majesty." "Report them all." Ahem! Windman suddenly coughed violently. "Stop talking," Du Jian screamed with a cry. She held the Viscount tightly and covered his mouth with her hand, trying to prevent the blood from flowing out. "Master!" Before she knew it, tears were streaming down her face. "Master, he is doing experiments on himself. For the sake of the armor that most of you wear, in order for everyone to be able to resist the power of the totem, he is doing experiments on himself. He will not live much longer. Why do you still do this to him?" Du 11 cried loudly. "Stop talking!" The Viscount stopped Du Jian's words. Looking around, the previous discussions gradually fell silent. Indeed, without this new technology, a large number of ordinary people would die in contact battles with monsters, unable to even resist and escape. Thinking of this, most people stopped saying anything. Galen stepped forward, but Vindman raised his hand to block him. His eyes flickered, and when he looked closer, he realized that there was something wrong with the Viscount's body. He looked normal, almost like a normal person. But in fact, there seems to be a whirlpool inside, robbing the body of all its nutritional energy. And because there was a totem light blocking it, Garen didn't study the totem deeply enough, and he didn't notice it at all before. Seeing his son's ugly expression, Vindman smiled. "It's nothing. Life only lasts for a few decades. I have never regretted my original choice. My only regret is that I hurt so many young children. Only when I get older do I realize how precious life is." His eyes fell on Andalou and Hathaway on the side again. "Siat, can you agree to my two requests?" Garen nodded with a heavy heart. He originally thought that he could save Vindman, which would be considered as compensation for occupying his son's body, but he did not expect that Vindman would not live long. He had already felt that Vined Man seemed to be having a flashback at this moment. Compared with before, he seemed to be missing the most important thing to support him. Vined Man's eyes fell on Baker's stone eyes. Let them go, all the sins are caused by me. His eyes were indifferent with a hint of guilt. I don't need your pity, Baker's stone eyes roared, and he couldn't help but spit out another mouthful of blood. Garen fell silent. Everyone was waiting quietly for him to see what decision he would make. After more than 10 seconds, he gently raised his hand. Call. The two-headed lizard dragon opened its left big mouth, spit out the unconscious red-armored woman in its mouth, and threw it on the ground next to Baker's stone eye. Belina, Baker's stone eyes stood up, ran to Berlina's side, and then reluctantly summoned a white horse totem of the same size, and put Talion and Berlina on it one by one. After protecting his companions, Baker's stone-eyed hands lit up with golden flames again, and he actually wanted to take action. Stop, the middle-aged man in white robe teleported in front of Baker's stone eyes, and lightly slashed the back of his neck with his palm, knocking him unconscious. His palm was not blocked by the totem light at all and penetrated directly. Get out of here quickly. Before I change my mind. Garen's voice was low. The middle-aged man in white robe believed that his strength was similar to that of Shi Yan, and without the secret treasure on Shi Yan's body, he would not be able to fully unfold the totem that was so powerful just now. Even the sunflower tree, which had the power of a secret treasure, failed. It was unknown what Galleon was hiding in the white light just now. He considered his expression and decided to leave directly. First, he took the 3 people he protected back to recuperate and recover. We will meet again in the future. My name is Jaluhe, he said slowly, and a sea blue diamond-shaped crystal suddenly appeared next to him. The crystal rotates at high speed and gradually becomes slightly illusory and translucent. Along with the 3 wounded and the man in white robe, Jaluhe began to become translucent and faded. Wow! The crystal suddenly turned into large fragments and exploded. The 4 people also completely disappeared. Charo Garen licked his lips. It's not that he doesn't want to keep these people, but he can't figure out the strength of the white-robed people, and now is not the time to quarrel with Daihua society head-on. Baker Xian is still very immature now, and there are many people in Daihua Club who are better than him. This behemoth cannot be compared to ordinary small forces. If they even dare to compete with Haitian society, Daihua society at least has top-level experts in charge. Moreover, this is also one of Vined Man's requests. Garen's eyes returned to Vined Man. Vined Man looked pleased and nodded towards him. I have another wish. He paused and his eyes fell on Hathaway. In my lifetime, my biggest wish is not to see your heir, my grandson, be born. For the future of my Terry Jones family, I cannot let the family roots be cut off in my hands. Garen suddenly had a bad feeling. Sure enough, Vined Man's next sentence completely confirmed his expectation. I hope you can make an engagement with Hathaway. He looked at Galen expectantly. This is my last request, don't refuse. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 347. Galen looked at Hathaway, who lowered his head and blushed to his neck. This cousin, who had always been heroic, was completely at a loss at this moment, like a young child. Understood. From now on, Cousin Hathaway is my fiancé. Garen looked calm. He just wanted to leave an heir for this body. This is what he should do in place of the original Ahashia. Boom. Suddenly there was a huge earthquake throughout the manor, and the ground shook violently. Garen's expression changed slightly, and he felt a huge and powerful chi and blood group in the distance, quickly moving towards the manor. At the same time, the crystal deducer in his arms became slightly hot, which showed that there was an elemental general of the same level as him around him, and he was approaching quickly. He's from the elite department. Garen immediately guessed the other party's background. That unknown behemoth is probably the work of the elite department. Leave immediately. Vined Man seemed to have noticed the movement, with an anxious look on his face. Xia, take everyone out of here immediately. Duxie, please. Don't worry, master, I won't let you down again. Du Jian wiped the tears from her face and nodded. After completing the arrangement, you can follow Xia from now on. You are a type 3 power, and you will be of some help to him, Vindman whispered. Du 11 nodded slightly. Uncle, what about you? Hathaway asked proactively. I still haven't finished the arrangements, Vindman smiled. Rubbing Hathaway's head, I watched you grow up. It's a pity that I can't see your and Xia's child born. Uncle, you can still live for a long time, don't say stupid things, Hathaway interrupted him. Go ahead. I'll be here in a minute. Vindman pushed Hathaway away. Garen frowned. Father, I'm with you. No need. What I'm launching here is an indiscriminate attack except for me and Du Jian. You staying here will only be a drag. Vindman shook his head. Let's go, take Hathaway with you. He lowered his head and coughed again. A mouthful of black blood coughed out of his mouth and dripped down the edge of his palm. Barbafia and others were now promoted as leaders by all the totem masters and gathered together. It is already difficult for Vindman to gain everyone's trust. The two old friends for many years looked at Vindman with complicated eyes, including confusion, strangeness, and even more sadness. Let's go, Bafia didn't say much. Turn around and leave quickly with a part of you. Take care of yourself, Bar sighed, said one last word to Vindman, and then turned around and led the others away. Boom! There was another dull crash, and the ground trembled. There was a commotion among everyone, and Bar looked back at Vindman. As a friend for many years, he calmed down and more or less understood Vindman's original feelings. Between morality and friendship, he still preferred friendship after all, and his dislike for Vindman immediately eased. Decades of friendship cannot be thrown away easily. The Terry Jones family is ruined, Bar whispered and sighed. No matter how powerful Vindman's son is, people from the Black Sky Society should be coming from outside. Their target is Vindman. Bafia remained silent. Although Ahashia suddenly became so powerful, they didn't know how they came into conflict with Baker Stone Eyes and others, but the current situation is that Ahashia's two aura beasts were seriously injured, and it was impossible to deal with the remaining power. Get the incoming enemy. They hurriedly left the manor and walked some distance away before they realized they were a little scared. That Xia acted decisively and killed Baker Stone Eyes and others at will. Tareen and Berlina were seriously injured even if they were not dead. Not to mention whether Baker's Stone Eyes could recover. Even if they could recover, it would take at least a long time. Although their relationship with Vindman made them certain that Xia would never take action, but now they think about it, what if the young man acted impulsively? Watching his old friend leave, Vindman looked at his son Xia. Let's go, get out of here quickly and take these people with you. There are still some ordinary people who survived in the manor. These are old people who have followed the Viscount for many years. They seem at a loss at this time. Most of them don't care much about the Viscount's oath experiments, and many of them don't understand any experiments. They only know that their interests and life glory are tied to the Viscount, and everything about the Viscount is everything to them. These people have lived in the manor for generations and are integrated with the Terry Jones family. There are about a dozen of these people, including Mark Ella and Adna. These two people had now become the leaders of this group. They looked at the Viscount with calm faces, waiting for his order. For them, the life and death of the others has nothing to do with them, and the Viscount is the object of their allegiance. As for the rest of the people, most of them looked confused and at a loss. Let's go, let's all go. Follow Xia, he is the future of my Terry Jones family. Wherever he is, that's where the family belongs, Vindman said loudly. Du Jian, take everyone and leave. Yes, Master. Du Jian wiped away her tears and clapped her hands. Suddenly, a large number of root-like vines sprouted from the ground and quickly opened a circular hole on the surface. Everyone, go in first. Following this passage, we can go directly to an exit 10 kilometers away, Du Jian said loudly. Garen stood quietly aside, his thoughts complicated for a moment. Vined Man seems to be dying soon, and he is considering whether to make him silver, which may be able to solve such serious experimental sequelae. Father, I heard that Black Sky Society has a technical method called silvering, which can cure most of the difficult and complicated diseases. I've tried it a long time ago, Vined Man said calmly, it didn't work. He looked at his son calmly. Go, there's no time. I'm just a dying person anyway. Vined Man's face was unusually calm, not like a dying person at all. Garen didn't know what to say, and Andalou Hathaway and others on the side didn't know what to say either. They could only walk into the tree root holes one by one under Du Jian's arrangement. Boss, Leela hurriedly came from the corner of the ruins and rushed to Garen. Sister asked me to tell you to leave immediately. She has already lured away the big guy outside, but she can only hold on for 5 minutes at most. I understand, let Angel leave immediately after achieving his goal. We will meet up later, Garen nodded. Where are the others? They are all out, but the situation is not good now, Leela said quickly. There are many monsters coming outside, and they are clashing with some monsters around the manor, but it seems that they can't hold on for long. What should we do now? Garen pondered for a moment and was about to speak. You guys should go together and leave the hole, Vined Man's voice interrupted. Boom. There was another heavy crash. It sounded like footsteps or trampling, which was unusually closer than before. Go, Vined Man suddenly shouted sharply. His eyebrows lit up, and a green light suddenly burst out around him. Buzz. The green light spread quickly, like a corrugated plate spreading into the distance. Just as Garen was about to speak, suddenly another group of people ran in noisily at the gate of the manor in the distance. The leader among them was the totem masters who had made a noise earlier and believed that Vined Man was guilty of a heinous crime. One of the leaders was a man in red robes. He was Cardiff, the patrol leader originally employed by the estate. The group of people were forced back, all of them looking pale and a little embarrassed. Cardiff was nearly 50 years old. When he saw people leaving the cave one after another, he couldn't help but blush, and walked over on his own initiative under the push of a group of people. Garen looked at the group of people coldly. Didn't you leave with Barbafia and the two? Why are you suddenly back now? Cardiff blushed. I hope you can get us out of here safely. Why are you being polite to him? They must have provoked the monsters outside. It is their duty to protect us and leave, someone shouted behind him. If it weren't for the manor's experiment, how could there be such a powerful monster outside? We are graduate students of the Royal East Totem College. According to imperial regulations, Vined Man, you and your son are obliged to protect us from leaving here safely from outside forces. Most of the people who came back were greedy for life and afraid of death. The stubborn ones were still with Barbafia and were not willing to come back to ask for help. The totem master who really values his friendship with Vined Man is still here and is walking into the cave one after another. There were only a dozen people left, including only 3 totem masters. As for the group of people who came back, they looked like people who were greedy for life and afraid of death. Both Mazilan and Adni recognized this group of people. They usually didn't see people when they were working and fighting, but they would definitely show up when there was something good for them. Some of them even wanted to rob the belongings of their totem master comrades who died in the battle. He was even severely scolded by the Viscount for this. Garen looked at this group of people indifferently. Several of them were students of the 2 masters. They were all nobles and their eyes were above their heads. You value your own life more than anyone else. Why should I protect you? Why? We fought for your Terry Jones family through life and death. We resisted so many monsters outside for so long. You actually have the nerve to ask such a question, a young man with a slender face stood up. You must atone for your crimes. This man was just a type 2 totem master, but he actually stood in front of Garen with the arrogance of a noble. Feeling Garen's unkind gaze at this moment, he flinched slightly and then immediately stood up. Some of us have escaped safely. I have arranged that as long as we leave safely, the scandal of your Terry Jones family has nothing to do with us, and we are too lazy to care. But if we can't go back, your warmth will spread throughout Kuwaitan. Demands scandalous experiment on innocent civilians. Let them go, Vindman said calmly. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 348. Sir, Mark Allah and Adna were already ready to draw their swords and kill. They had long disliked this group of useless wastes. Let them go, Vindman emphasized. After all, they are trapped here because of me. Some resentment is also deserved. Garen was a little irritated. These nobles were really baffled. He showed great strength, but some people still dared to speak nonsense in front of him, thinking that he did not dare to violate the laws of the empire and openly took action. Doesn't he know that there is a method in this world called assassination? Do you think the law is something that overrides everything? Perhaps it was like this most of the time on Earth, but in such troubled times, these young birds living in a peaceful area have probably not experienced the cruel and bloody wars outside. Under Vindman's urging, the group quickly entered the cave under the surveillance of Marzilan, and then Hathaway and Andalu also entered under the protection of Adna. In the end, only Vindman and Galen were left in the manor. Dujian was responsible for escorting the group of people through the cave safely. Garen summoned all his totems and surrounded them. Following his hint, the new beetles on the periphery spread quickly and began to search from all directions for the companions the nobles said had left first. Shia Vindman stood gently beside the hole, the green light on his body getting stronger and stronger. Carefully taking out a goose egg-sized oval ball from his body, he handed the ball to Garen. Here you go. This is the green vine ball, the ultimate weapon I originally developed for our family. Unfortunately, I can't use it now. Galen took the ball. The ball is completely green and black, and there seems to be a green shimmer on the surface. The green vine ball is the core pinnacle work of my research career. It can continuously separate spore-like seeds, attach to other people, and absorb the physical strength and energy of the other person to grow. After reaching a certain level, it turns into a set of personal fitting biological armor. The point is, this layer of armor allows ordinary people to possess the attributes of totem light. Vindman explained simply. After taking out the green vine ball, his face suddenly turned gray. This is the mother seed of the family. You must plant it on yourself. As for whether to cultivate it and provide it with nutrients to grow, it depends on your own wishes. But you have to remember that this is the main body that can control all the subseeds. It is completely in your own hands. As long as you master it, you can control a powerful enough biological army. Of course, whether the armor is strong or not is related to the strength of the parasite. He told Garen the key points of the green vine ball bit by bit. Only then did Garen understand why both the Earth Flower Society and the Black Sky Society wanted to snatch this research result. Such a thing could simply make the overall strength of the entire force even higher. It was far more than a Type 3 Totem Master or Aura. The role of the Totem Master can be compared. In addition, some research records of my experiments and some subject books used are placed here. Vindman once again took out a small red key. Go to the Imperial capital. This key can open the basement of my manor there. If you are not interested, just burn them all. Besides, I have an old friend who may be able to take care of you. Garen sat on the carriage, quietly playing with the red key in his hand. Angel sat across from him panting, looking extremely embarrassed. The wound on his right shoulder was being carefully bandaged by Lala. I heard about your family. Do you think I should call you Garen or Ahashia? Let's stick with Galen. I am now the head of Terry Jones' family and have the right to change my name, Galen said calmly. He looked out the car window. In the direction of the manor, a layer of green light was blocking a huge chimpanzee beast. This giant beast is huge, more than 20 meters tall, but it seems to have no special abilities and moves slowly. He punched it hard, but it was completely blocked by the seemingly thin green light. Ouch! After a few punches failed to break open the green egg shell, the gorilla became furious and roared fiercely. The violent vibrations could be clearly heard even by carriages more than 10 kilometers away. What kind of monster is that? Angel saw Garen's unsurprised expression, as if he already knew about this monster. The giant war beast, Garen replied calmly, it's just huge in size, moves very slowly, and is difficult to control. It's equivalent to a siege vehicle, and is only useful for tough battles. What's really noteworthy is that it's accompanied by Elite Protection Force. Elite Protection Force. Well, it's a team of strong men who specialize in protecting war beasts from being killed at close range. According to the level, a war beast should be protected by a lieutenant general. Garen narrowed his eyes slightly. Speaking of this, Garen thought of Vindman, who was still in the manor. The Viscount knew that he was not far from death. After Garen and others entered the cave, he directly blocked the cave and faced the enemy's arrival alone. A lieutenant general will have at least 2 Type 3 totems, not to mention other team members. Garen's totem was seriously injured at this time and could not withstand any more torture. What if the white-robed man from Dai Hua Club didn't leave, but was just waiting for an opportunity, and after a confrontation, the result would be very unhappy. The other party was originally targeting Vindman, and there was no one to hold him back, so there was no way to escape. Sister Duchi. Lord Duchian. Suddenly there was an urgent shout from outside. Garen quickly opened the carriage and jumped out, but only looked back to see a green figure. I'm sorry, young master, I'm going to accompany you. A voice had not completely dissipated. Galen stood there and did not pursue him. He understood that Duchi had lived for Vindman all her life and she loved that man too deeply. He had expected it since he left, and Duchian would not leave the manor easily. Mark Ella and Hathaway chased him out, but to no avail, and soon walked back helplessly. Seeing Galen looking at them, Hathaway shook her head and said nothing. Forget it, keep going. Garen was silent for a moment and then said, everyone get in the car. Hathaway was a little reluctant, but still didn't speak. The rest of the people who got off the bus didn't say much. As the new head of Terry Jones' family, Galen's words are now their guiding principle. After getting back into the car, I didn't move forward for long when I heard a roar behind me. The violent explosion was accompanied by a plume of black smoke rising into the sky. Galen sat in the carriage, knowing that this was the last trace of Vindman. Even though he didn't have much of a sense of belonging to Vindman as his father, he still felt a little lonely. Vindman himself is a contradictory person, he has multiple roles. Benevolent father and superior. A ruthless aristocrat and scientist. And martyrs who ultimately sacrificed everything for their ideals and vows. The crowded convoy, carrying more than 20 people in total, quickly drove away from the vicinity of Terry Jones Manor. Driving from the rear along Black Swan Lake toward the interior of the Kingdom of Cowden. What are your plans next? Angel asked from the other side. Garen let out a breath. The next step is not what he plans to do, but the Black Sky Society and the Earthly Flower Society will not let go of the parasitic mother seed in his hands. Trouble will find itself at your door. Go to the royal capital, he whispered. It is said that the 12 princesses were originally coming, but now it is definitely impossible for them to come again. I've found out everything. Angel picked up the coffee Lalo made and took a sip. Continuing from our direction, we will soon reach the Sinangfa defense line of the Kingdom of Kuwaitan of the Royal Alliance. This defense line is an absolutely safe defense line carefully built by the Royal Alliance. Inside is a completely safe human zone. As long as you enter the human area, the safe zone is much safer. I can also contact the War Guild, and I have a letter of introduction from the president of the Iron City branch. This is pretty good. I heard that there are 3 large legions deployed on the Cowatan side of the West Nongfa defense line. The Dawn Eagle, the 3rd Heavy Armor Regiment and the Dark Blue Flag. The 3 legions each occupy 3 strongholds. Which side should we go through? Angel took out a map, disconnected from the coffee, and unfolded it on the table. The 3 strongholds have been marked separately, which are 3 red dots similar to triangles. Displayed on a map of Cowatan shaped like a circle of flat bread. It is just on the lower left side of the pie, on the edge of Ulsan province, and immediately enters the neighboring Vizi province. Legion? Are ordinary people's troops also effective? Garen asked doubtfully. No, they are all composed of totem masters. I heard from the totem masters from the royal capital in the manor. The Badko kingdom in the southwest was destroyed, and a large number of surviving Badko people poured into Cowatan, including many Badko totem divisions joined the Kuwaitan military for revenge. Angel shook his head and sighed. Badko is a medium-sized empire, but they were all destroyed. The Black Sky Society and these monsters are really cruel. Garen fell silent. He first looked at his attribute column. Power 6.66, Agility 2.72, Physical Fitness 2.82, Intelligence 2.53, Potential 17,221%. Some of the more than 200 potential points accumulated previously were used up when evolving the 2 petrified white dragons, and now there are still 172 potential points. The petrochemical white dragon is considered a very cost-effective Type 3. It's a pity that it can no longer evolve. Garen felt a little regretful. In order to deal with possible dangers this time, he decisively evolved 2 petrified giant lizards and upgraded them into petrified white dragons. 3 petrified white dragons and a 2-headed lizard dragon were able to barely suppress Baker's Stone Eye, and the hidden trump card, the strange power of the Troll's Grip, also allowed him to cope with the last sneak attack. The grip of the troll has the characteristic of greatly weakening the defense of the totem light. If it were replaced by another totem master, maybe this is just an ordinary trump card, which can only have some effect when the enemy is close. But for Garen, this feature of weakening the defense of totem light is simply an added advantage. As a master of secret martial arts, the light of the totem is his biggest obstacle. Now that this obstacle has been greatly reduced, his secret martial arts strength has finally been put to use. Remove the totem and totem master of totem light, and the only threat is the strong body and special abilities. It can be said that the grip of the troll gave him an important opportunity to pick up the secret weapon again. Garen recalled everything that happened when he traveled to this world. Black smoke pots, volcanoes, ancient sounds, multiple civilizations, and urban monsters. Everything seems to indicate that this world has a different connection with the previous world. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 349. Sitting on the carriage, Garen carefully sorted out all the known situations. The core totem, the white tiger with black stripes, had also been repaired. He plans to take advantage of the free time while the convoy is walking to directly upgrade the black striped white tiger to the 2nd type. Don't look at the totem surrounding him now, but if someone encounters a sneak attack, or if he wants more room for improvement in the future, it will not be as good as the core totemic. Whether it is a petrified white dragon or a 2-headed lizard dragon, there is no way to improve it anymore, it has reached the peak of its genes. The only way to improve now is the core totem. Maybe in the future we can collect various species to test the limits of evolution, but not now. While he was thinking carefully, a faint signal suddenly entered Garen's mind. Found it, he stood up immediately. You guys keep on your way, I have to go out for a while and I'll catch up soon. Angel nodded. Be careful. Garen nodded, opened the carriage and jumped out. The feedback from the beetle is not far away and should arrive soon. As soon as Galen got off the carriage, he turned into a grey shadow and quickly ran into the woods. He climbed up a towering tree to the top of the tree, and he jumped out suddenly. Ouch! A petrified white dragon passed by from low altitude, just in time to hold him firmly. Guy Lassie stood on a hillside from a distance, looking at Terry Jones Manor being completely destroyed by the giant ape, feeling an indescribable joy in her heart. A group of people stood around her, including men and women, old and young, but they all had one thing in common, that is, they were smiling. These people were all her subordinates who gathered together after the troubled times, 5-second type totem masters, all of whom were the elite of the elite. Some of them are desperados from foreign enemies, and some of them are subordinates who have been with Guy Lassie for many years. There are also members of the Black Sky Club who have left the branch and cannot return. The leader of Green Shade is one of them. She is kneeling on one knee and reporting the situation to Guy Lee. After the giant ape left, we searched around the manor for a long time, and sure enough we caught some Kuwaitan nobles who escaped from it. We found some pretty good things from them. That's good, send them all to the warehouse. Guy Lee was in a good mood now. Wind Man is finally dead. After fighting with him openly and secretly for so many years, I can finally sleep peacefully. Warsaw. Here a man in a red hunting suit stood up next to him. Report this news to the branch immediately. Sequoia, how many manpower do we have now? Another woman in red stood up. There are 15 Type 2 totem masters and 32 ordinary guards, most of whom are green. Lieutenant Colonel Wen Rui has also arrived and is currently resting in the manor. Lieutenant Colonel Wen Rui. He also has a group of forces under his command, which can just complement us. Guy Lee nodded. It's a pity that the people from the elite department are here, otherwise we might have found some more good things if we had collected them earlier. I just don't know what happened. There seemed to be a big battle in the manor earlier. The specific situation has not been clarified yet, the woman in red reported in a low voice. Perhaps the people in the elite department know the situation. But the people in the elite department have always looked down on other departments, even our military department. Some time ago, Lieutenant General Fall even had a conflict with the people in the elite department. How dare you have a conflict with the powerful Lieutenant General Fall? Are these people in the elite department all stupid? Guy Lassie showed a trace of disgust on her face. They are all little brats who haven't grown up at all. It's a pity that we don't have a big shot in the military department to take charge of the overall situation at this point. A hint of hope suddenly appeared on Guy Lassie's face. I hope that gentleman is not just passing by. Beep. Suddenly there was a slight vibration in her arms. Guy Lassie quickly took out the crystal deducer from her underwear pocket. It was a transparent crystal ball with only a very light red color, only the size of a fist. I saw a line of Kuwaitan text slowly emerging from the crystal ball. Your request has been granted. Guy Lassie's face suddenly showed a look of joy. She just made a contact request with the attitude of giving it a try. Surely. An unprecedented ecstasy surged from the bottom of her heart. She, jealous Zambonita, was about to become prosperous. Everyone. All salute. She took a deep breath and yelled. Wow. Everyone, including her, knelt down on one knee. The reddish crystal ball was placed on a branch in front of her. The words China Unicom flashed on it. Garen was riding on the back of the white dragon, looking at the rapidly shrinking and receding forest driveway below. He raised his head and looked in the direction from which the beetle came. After thinking about it, he took out the crystal ball of the deduction device. At this time, after the crystal ball was activated and silvered, it returned to its original pink color. As soon as it was taken out, the crystal ball glowed with a faint red fluorescence. Circles of oscillating ripples are constantly appearing on the top. Discover communication request 3. 3 communication requests, Garen was slightly surprised. The sluggish state of the crystal deducer completely disappeared due to the silvering of Lala. Now you can continue to communicate with other crystal balls. He hesitated slightly. Then tapped the option to allow the request. Hiss. Like the crackle of a television signal. The three link messages appear together on the crystal ball screen. Elite Lieutenant General Charles. Brigadier General Canberra, Green Forest Province. Colonel Gillis of Green Forest Province. Guy Lassie. A strange smile appeared on the corner of Garen's mouth. He clicked on Guy Lassie's contact request. There was a slight chirping sound, and the contact was quickly connected. I'm Jace, Colonel Gillis, report your location immediately. In the woods on the hillside. Guy Lee and her group had fanatical expressions on their faces, bowing their heads and kneeling respectfully in front of the crystal ball. She was not the only one. Everyone else was extremely excited when they learned that there was actually an elemental general in Green Forest Province. General of the elements. That is a high-end existence whose own strength reaches the extreme. He can summon a large amount of combat power with a single wave of his subordinates. He is only one step away from being the leader. Every elemental general is an extremely powerful person. Its own combat power is much higher than the strength of the spiritual light. Whoever can become a general of elements is not a genius among geniuses, an elite among elites. Guy Lassie's biggest wish was to become a brigadier general, but now she has met a true elemental general. This made her feel extremely excited. I'm Jess, Colonel Gillis. I'll report the location of your stronghold immediately. A low, hoarse voice came from the crystal ball. Dear General Jace, I have a manor in Terry Jones territory. You can directly locate my location through the crystal ball. It's not far away. Guy Lassie's voice was trembling. Originally, at a level like her, she would never be able to get in touch with such a big shot until she reached the general level. Unexpectedly, the opportunity finally appeared. Very good. I'm mobilizing a lot of resources now. Make a list of the resources you have and report them to me. General Jace's voice sounded cold and ruthless, with a strong sense of depression. Yes. I must complete the order, Guy Lee responded seriously. Then she hesitated and said, Your Excellency, General, our Green Forest Province was originally under the name of Lieutenant General Grui, but now the life and death of the Lieutenant General is unknown. The entire Green Forest Province is in a mess, and there is no one to unify and lead it. Can you completely integrate the forces of the Green Forest Military Department to prevent anyone from taking the opportunity to cause chaos? She paused and continued. In addition, regarding resources, I accidentally received a secret spell from the Phantom Workshop. I wonder if you are interested. She knew that there was no leader now, and the provinces were like headless flies, being driven around by monsters. The lieutenants were all managing their own jurisdictions, and no one bothered to pay attention to such a remote area in Green Forest Province. The original Lieutenant General leader here was also killed by the King of Kuwaitan under the offensive of the Royal Alliance. Even the Lieutenant Generals don't look down on this place, let alone the generals. Several generals nearby ignored the situation here. Each has not even solved its own territorial issues, and no one is in the mood to care about trivial matters here. The Black Sky Society in the Green Forest Province could only barely protect itself in battle after battle, and the branch was only supported by a brigadier general. As Kuwaitan has grown stronger, they have longed for a strong leader to lead them. Unfortunately, this wish is too difficult to realize. No one is willing to resist the pressure of Kuwaitan for the sake of the resource-poor Green Forest. The pressure on Guy Lassie is also increasing. Now, finally, someone is paying attention to the entire Green Forest Province. This finally relaxed her mood. Secret technique. Phantom Workshop, General J seemed to have never heard of it. This spell is a solidification spell that allows all totems under your command to add a layer of bone defensive armor. It is said to be a special type of hard bone found in ruins by people from the Phantom Workshop, and was researched. Gyla C explained quickly. Phantom Workshop is the best workshop master association in Green Forest. I understand. It's up to you to take care of this. Send the maximum resources you can to this point as soon as possible. A place name suddenly appeared in the crystal ball, and it turned out to be the shore near Black Swan Lake. Understood, Gyla C nodded quickly. Then, I'm looking forward to your performance. Colonel Gillis. General Jace's voice quickly disappeared from the crystal ball. Guy Lee and others knelt on one knee on the ground and slowly stood up after a long time. Putting away the crystal ball, Gyla C turned around with a joyful expression. Everyone, now is the time for us to perform. Although General Jace is not the general who directly manages us, as long as we seize this opportunity, we can directly belong to Lord Jace and have the protection of a general. I will no longer be suppressed by the disgusting garbage of the royal family. Sir, what exactly does the resource that Master Jace mentioned include? He did not give a final conclusion. Sequoia couldn't help but said. This should be a test for us by Your Excellency. He only mentioned resources without naming specific names. It is obviously to see our sincerity and loyalty. Revenue, how many rare evolutionary crystals are there in the stronghold now? 3 pieces. Sir, that is a good thing that you have worked so hard to get. It can catalyze the evolution of most totems and is ready to be used for the evolution of your sub-totems. Give them all away. Don't you? Lavenu is a skin. The dark black man stood up and said with an embarrassed expression. Such a critical moment is really the time to show determination. Gyla C raised her hand boldly. Send them all to the designated location. There are also spare unactivated high-quality totems. Send 2/3 and leave a little for emergency use. The 2 sets of magic arrays and all energy crystals in stock will be sent to you. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 350. But Colonel, those 2 sets of magic formations are the final trump card prepared by your father for you. Just give them away for nothing, just in case. Lu Yin whispered worriedly. If you want to do great things, you must first be willing to give up. Guy Li narrowed her eyes and said, there are times when a general lacks resources. Now is the time for us to show our loyalty. What I have, if I change it to someone else local time, there are so many people who want to send it, and they probably won't even take a look. But it's different now. We must seize this opportunity. Colonel is wise. I think so too. As a general, he actually mobilized resources in Green Forest Province. It must be at a special time. This is the time for us to show our loyalty. An old totem master stood up and agreed with Guy Li. Practice. Yes, so we not only need to send resources, but also send good enough resources, Gyla C said firmly. Garen looked at the words disconnecting communication in the crystal ball and felt extremely happy. Among the 3 communication requests, one actually came from Guy Li. He almost forgot that Guy Li was one of the people in charge here. In addition to Gyla C, he did not connect the other 2 communications. One was from the Lieutenant General of the Elite Department. The last one came from one of the 2 generals I had contacted before, Medea. Garen thought for a moment and clicked on Medea's link. The crackling sound continued for a long time, and finally, more than 10 seconds later, a coughing sound came from the crystal ball. I'm Medea, Jace, why did you just contact me now? There was something wrong with my crystal ball some time ago. Is there anything wrong? Garen replied in a low voice. Something happened. You should go to Khautan now. The 3 generals from Khautan are now missing. Now the entire branch has no leader. The commander wants you to take over. Medea say it simply and clearly. Let me take the lead? Are you kidding? 3 generals are missing. Do you think I can resist this kind of power? Garen's voice suddenly turned cold. The superiors are quite satisfied with your performance in Titan City, but after the death of the White Dragon Eagle Grand Duke, and the emergence of the Black Dragon Eagle King, the commander is also very annoyed. Medea explained, the commander means yes, for the time being, I will let you manage the Kuwaitan side and don't have a big conflict with the king of Kuwaitan. For the rest, you just need to wait quietly, and the situation will turn around soon. Oh! Turn of events, Garen's heart moved. The king of Kuwaitan is a great lord of his generation. He is young and powerful, and his strategies and decisions are second to none. Are you talking about a turning point? The people from the elite department have already arrived at your side, right? They are responsible for the plan in this area, and I don't know much about it. You can ask the people from the elite department about the situation. Medea shied away, try to be more restrained and don't talk to them. They have conflicts. This is what the leader means. Who is the top leader over there? Garen asked directly. Deluzzi, Deluzzi. Jacques. Medea said the name solemnly. Garen was finally slightly shocked. Princess Kuwaitan. She is actually one of ours too. The chess game was laid out many years ago. Only generals are qualified to know the secret. You'd better keep it tight. Although success is not far away now, Medea warned. I see. By the way, are you sure there is no problem with your inferring machine? Someone from Mahakala is also in Kuwaitan. Do you want to ask him to repair it for you? Nothing, just a little state of mind. That's good. Snapped. Contact is broken. Garen sat on the dragon's back, feeling the cold wind blowing from high altitude, but his heart felt a little cold. Princess Deluzzi is the most beloved princess of the king of Kuwaitan. Unexpectedly, she is a member of the Black Sky Society and is also the leader of the elite department. Titan City, Kuwaitan, Enite, Dongzhou, what a big game. He narrowed his eyes slightly. As for Vindman's technology, Medea didn't even mention it. This level can at most improve the power of the bottom layer. It has no impact on the top management at all. If the core totem reaches the third type of spiritual light, the core and totem master can be combined into one in a short time, doubling the power and doubling the defense. All subtotems do not have this ability. Although this technology is good for improving the totem at the bottom level, it has no big effect at the high level. Therefore, neither Black Sky Club nor Daihua Club attaches great importance to green vine balls. Mortals are mortals. Even if they have the attributes of totem light, they still have no power to fight back against all kinds of advanced totems. Originally, he came out to kill Gyla C, but now he has stopped this idea for the time being. Wouldn't it be a better choice to use General Jace's identity to deceive all Gyla C's treasures and then kill her? The petrified white dragon flapped its wings and flew forward, and soon landed on the edge of Swan Lake, in a piece of crooked and broken woods. Lying on the ground were several noble totem masters in gorgeous clothes. These people were the group of student nobles who had escaped from the manor earlier. He actually wanted to threaten Garen and Vindman. I don't know whether to live or die. Garen kicked a noble corpse and turned it over. The neck of the corpse was completely severed by a bloody mark. With just a slight external impact, the head and body separated and rolled to the other side. A petrified white dragon and a two-headed lizard dragon were lying beside Garen, and several Fukasawa giant crocodiles were surrounding them. After the battle between the manor and Baker Stone Eyes, the number of Fukasawa giant crocodiles dropped sharply, with only 6 here. There are only a dozen or so newly born beetles. Garen took out the green vine ball. This green ball seemed like a living thing, with green roots extending out and waving like tentacles. It's like a ball of yarn with lint everywhere. He flicked the green vine ball. Several points of green light suddenly flew out from the surface of the sphere and fell on all the surrounding totems. After the green light attached to the totem, there was no movement. Garen put away the green vine ball, guessing that it might take some time to take effect, and just ordered these totems not to get rid of these green light spots. He put on the hood on his head, hiding his whole body under the grey robe. After communicating with Elemental General Media, Garen gained a new understanding of the current situation. He remembered that in the history he saw, the king of Khautan was assassinated and died, and then the entire Khautan suddenly collapsed. However, it should still be a long time before the Titan City incident. This should be the completion stage of Black Sky Society's layout. His current main force is controlled by the Deducer. Then choosing to upgrade the core totem and seizing control of the Deducer are two possible paths. The main key to controlling the Deducer lies in the Resonance Stone in your hand. Garen was playing with the Resonance Stone in his hand. The Resonance Stone had completely changed at this time. It was like an ordinary grey-white stone. When he held it in Garen's hand, it didn't have the strange and inexplicable feeling of a lump of flesh before. Garen has been playing with it for so long, relying on the powerful five senses and sensitivity developed through secret martial arts. He could already vaguely feel the secret of this stone. He also gradually summarized some rules of the frequency model of the resonance stone. As long as we thoroughly understand the resonance principle, we can have a deeper understanding and research on the crystal deduction device. Garen is very confident in this aspect. As long as he gets enough research information and subject knowledge, he can completely improve it by using his powers. As for the core totem, the black striped white tiger, now it has striped crystals, enough potential points, and the totem has been repaired. Everything is ready and waiting to start evolving. Garen stood quietly by the Black Swan Lake, looking diagonally above the lake where the Vindman Manor was originally located. There was only a burnt blackness left there. The fire was raging, and there were occasional pops of collapsing timbers. The giant ape has disappeared, and the manor is completely silent. There is no trace of a human being left. The fire in the manor reflected a large area of fiery red on the lake, and a lot of black smoke floated in the gray sky. Time passes minute by minute. Garen's totems spread out and hid themselves. The fire in the manor continued, getting bigger and bigger. Galen faced the fire and stood quietly under a big tree by the lake. Soon, Bison with red metal skin walked out of the forest behind him carrying black leather boxes of various sizes. The escorts were several young men and women wearing black armor. When these people saw Garen standing by the lake, they suddenly looked hesitant. The leader was wearing an exquisite black dress, with long light brown hair, a slim figure, and plump breasts. It was Gylasi. This enchanting woman has a pair of beautiful almond eyes, light pink lipstick on her lips, and white pearl earrings on her ears. At this time, she was looking at the man in grey robe by the lake with doubtful eyes. "Excuse me, are you the man sent by Master Jace to receive the things?" she asked in a low voice. "Dear Goddess Jealous, it's been so long since I last saw you and you don't recognize me. It's really disappointing." The man in grey robe slowly turned around and took off his hood, revealing a smiling and handsome face. Gylasi's eyes were confused at first, and then her pupils shrank, as if she remembered something, and suddenly they widened. She raised her hand and pointed at the other person, but she was speechless for a moment. Snapped. Garen snapped his fingers lightly. Numerous pairs of giant red eyes suddenly appeared around a group of people, and an unknown amount of dangerous auras suddenly emerged in the shadows of the woods. "How could you possibly know this place?" Gyli suddenly panicked. She forced herself to calm down and stared at Garen opposite. "This is General Jace's reservation location, you are not Ahashia. Who are you?" Garen spread his hands, and the crystal deducer slowly floated from his hands, slowly turning, emitting a faint red light. "What do you think?" His voice at this time was actually divided into two, one hoarse and the other clear. Overlapping together gives people an indescribable strangeness. Gylasi's heart felt cold. She heard it from one of the voices, and that was the timbre of General Jace. "Walk." Without hesitation, she shouted and retreated. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 351. Call. 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 Jealous gasped for air, and she burst out 4 lightning displacement spells in succession. This was an ability stored in the spell chain in advance, and was used directly to escape. The subordinates around her have completely disappeared, but she can't care so much now. Just as his body came to a halt, several giant wolves with giant red eyes appeared in the woods ahead. Each of these giant wolves was as tall as a person. Their bodies were covered with rotten and suppurating wounds, and they felt like they might collapse at any time. Damn it! It's Vined Man's corrupted giant wolf. Her face turned pale, and she felt how many such giant wolves were around her. Green vine ball. It must be a green vine ball. Only the green vine ball can control these scattered, experimental subjects outside. She took 2 steps back and felt a familiar whine coming from behind again, which was the roar of the corrupted giant wolf. There were too many of these giant wolves, and they were obviously prepared in advance. I've given up everything. Don't push people too hard, Guy Lassie shouted loudly. Suddenly she rolled to the left suddenly and fell to the ground. Click. Where he was standing, a huge mouth suddenly emerged from the ground, biting the hole, swallowing a large piece of dirt and grass, and then quickly retracted. A black hole with a diameter of 2 meters was left behind. Guy Lassie's chest rose and fell violently, and she looked around warily. Her men had already dispersed from her, and with a few lightning displacements, she was far away from her previous men. She gritted her teeth. As long as you help me hold that person down, I will definitely help you settle everything else when we get back. Standing up from the ground, she looked extremely embarrassed. The clothes on her body were in a mess, covered with grass clippings and soil, and there were a few soil clippings in her hair. She thought for a moment and patted her lower back lightly. A ray of silver light shot out, fell in front of her, and turned into a black and green python. The giant python has a pair of small white wings on both sides of its head, which is extremely weird. Kill that guy underground, she ordered with her mind. The giant python immediately dived down, pushed through the soil and disappeared on the ground. Woo! A corrupted giant wolf rushed over, biting Guy Lassie's neck with a putrid smell. At the same time, another corrupted giant wolf rushed towards him from behind. Surrounded by a dense crowd, more than a dozen giant wolves rushed over at the same time. Roar! A manic roar spread from Guy Lassie's place. At the same time, a yellow ripple spread instantly. More than a dozen giant corrupted wolves were violently knocked away at the same time, rolling on the ground around them. After struggling a few times, they quickly turned into pools of pus. Then more than 10 new corrupted giant wolves pounced. Just as Guy Lee wanted to move her position, she was immediately entangled by the giant wolves again. Garen slowly walked out of the woods and looked at Guy Lassie, who was tightly surrounded by the corrupted giant wolf. There are also more than 200 corrupted giant wolves that can be controlled by the green vine ball. These experimental subjects are obtained by covering ordinary wolves with spores. The power can only be regarded as a totem beast, not very strong. But it is very good to use as consumables. Seeing the corrupted wolves clinging to Guy Lassie, the 2-headed lizard dragon underground was temporarily blocked by the strange python she released and fought into a ball. Garen was a little surprised. Where is your deduction device? Where are your other totems? Why don't you use them? He clapped his hands and motioned for the large group of wolves to disperse. Guy Lassie stayed in the center in a state of embarrassment. The spell chain in her cuffs had completely used up all escape spells. She stared at Garen. You can't be Ahashia. Who are you? Why do you want to harm me like this? Garen smiled. Didn't we meet a long time ago? I am Shia. You actually forgot all about Shia, who wrote love poems for you. The green vine ball can control more than 200 corrupted giant wolves, which Garen intends to use as a common method. The 2-headed lizard dragon was actually held up by a weird-looking python, which surprised Garen slightly. That strange python is obviously the opponent's only Type 3 totem. At this time, Gylasi was completely desperate. All her Type 2 totems had just gone through a battle and were almost consumed. Only the strongest green python was left, and then the only Type 3 double-winged python, which was attached to the magic chain. The preparation technique was all she had, but in the hands of the man in front of her, it was as if she had none. The Type 3 double-winged python was blocked, but there were still several extremely dangerous auras hidden around it, and she could feel it. Gylasi has had a premonition of danger since she was a child. This feeling has saved her too many times, so when she first saw the man in grey robe, she knew that he had laid a huge ambush, and decisively dropped his men. Fleeing alone, 4 consecutive lightning displacements almost consumed all her totem power. After moving hundreds of kilometers, I still couldn't get rid of this man. She had a vague feeling like when she met that person for the first time. The scene in front of me was completely similar to before. It was also a terrifying enemy that could not be escaped no matter how hard I tried to escape. The same tall man stared at him with a playful look. Kaobo. You are Kaobo, she suddenly shouted loudly. How dare you attack me? My father will not let you go. Absolutely. Garen was stunned, never expecting that she would say such crazy things. Who is Kaobo? Before he could ask, he saw Jealous turning around and running, following the gaps in the woods towards the lake. Raise your hand. Laugh. A giant Fukasawa crocodile rushed out and knocked Gyli to the ground. Rolled several times on the muddy ground. The woman gasped and got up from the ground. The green totem light on her body was covered with sticky black mud. The black mud slowly slid down and fell back to the ground like it was on a mirror. What on earth do you want to do? She stood there and stared at Garen closely. Garen slowly walked towards her. I also want to thank you for the supplies you brought me. Did you attract those people from the elite department of Vindman Manor? So what? If they find out, you'll be dead, Gylasi said viciously, her voice stern. This time the elite department is led by a genuine lieutenant general with a strong background. It's still too late for you to retreat. I will explain to the superiors that this is a misunderstanding. Retreat, Garen couldn't help laughing. Quillis, I thought you were a very smart woman, but I didn't expect you to be so stupid at a critical moment. He whipped out a spinning side kick. Bang. Her right leg turned into a grey shadow and was severely slapped on Gylasi's waist. Gylasi rolled on the ground more than 10 times like a gourd, and hit a big tree hard, knocking out a large piece of bark from the trunk and falling down. A large number of leaves rained down from above. Gylasi was protected by the light of the totem and was not seriously injured. She quickly got up from the ground. Her hair was disheveled, and her eyes kept looking to the ground, and then to Garen, for fear that he would suddenly attack again. Are you summoning your Type 3 totem? Garen smiled. It's a pity that my little baby has already entangled it. It won't be possible to decide the winner in just a few minutes. What on earth do you want to do? Gylasi retreated to the edge of the big tree and leaned her back against the trunk. My father is the Brigadier General of the Black Sky Society branch. He can give you money. He can give you whatever you want. As long as you take me as a hostage, you can exchange it directly. That's not what I need, all I want is you. Garen shook his head, and suddenly a woman's muffled groan came from the right side. He looked over suddenly and saw another Jealous being whipped back by a Fukasawa giant crocodile. However, Gylasi, who was originally standing in front of the tree trunk, gradually faded away. Oh! A phantom, Garen looked serious. You have a lot of cards in your hand. A mere kernel almost deceived me. He opened his eyes, his pupils suddenly turned red, and a circle of blood symbols flashed in his eyes. Gyli, who was being watched by him, suddenly trembled, and the light of the black and green totem around her suddenly dimmed, and her entire defense dropped by more than half. Gailasee's face turned pale, she turned around and ran very fast, like a frightened hare, rushing towards the bushes behind her. Garen was faster, his figure turned into a grey shadow, and he blocked her way with a single lunge. He stretched out his left hand and gently pressed it on Gaile's forehead. The palm and the light of the totem collided lightly. Click. The light of the totem suddenly shattered like glass, turning into black and green fragments and dissipating in the air. The debilitating ray weakened Gailasee's totem light by more than one step, and Garen himself carried a green vine ball, and all his attacks had the attributes of totem light. Actually, Gailasee's totem light was completely defeated in one fell swoop. Bang bang bang. Gailasee's body was thrown violently, hit the ground several times, hit hard on a large bluestone, and rolled to the side. She was covered in the green color of moss and grass clippings, her nose was bruised and her face was swollen. She was lying on the ground unable to get up. It was obvious that her waist had been damaged. No, don't kill me. I don't want to die. Gailasee tried to prop up her body several times, but she still couldn't. There was a hint of crying in her voice. Don't kill me. My father is a brigadier general. Garen walked up to her and looked at the woman with snot and tears flowing out. She had completely lost her previous enchanting appearance and was just an ordinary human being. We attracted people from the elite department and made Vined Man die in his own manner. It's too late to say this now, he said lightly. Gailasee tried to push herself up, but she couldn't. Don't kill me, I can do a lot for you. A lot, she cried, shrinking back, trying to get further away from Garen. Garen raised his head, looked at the grey sky, and suddenly felt inexplicable emotion. Don't you like me? I can be your lover. Be your slave. Don't kill me, don't. Gailasee started talking incoherently. Garen stood in front of her, just looking at her quietly. Puff. Gailasee suddenly spurted out a mouthful of blood, and her chest was suddenly stained red. There was an inexplicable look on her face, as if she didn't know what had happened to her. Raising her hand, she stared blankly at the blood on her hand. Puff. Another mouthful of blood spurted out. No. I don't want to die. She wailed loudly. Laugh. 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 One after another, wounds began to open everywhere on Gailasee's body, and blood shot out of her body like a fountain. Mom, Daddy, where are you? Gailasee cried loudly, and began to fumble forward with her hands in confusion. Her beautiful almond eyes were completely blurred at this time, and she could not see anything, and her eyes were black. Mom. Woo. Garen stood quietly in front of her, watching her covered in blood, groping on the ground and crying. Only in the most desperate times will the deepest things burst out. He tightened his grey robe and turned to leave. Bang. Suddenly there was a dull explosion behind him. Jealous directly exploded into a ball of blood mist, which splashed onto the surrounding trees and grass, completely dyeing a large area red. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 352. Sitting on the carriage of the motorcade. Galen quietly calculated the equations in front of him. Lines of delicate numerical formulas continued to appear under the tip of the pen, neatly arranged on the white paper. The carriage wheels rolled slowly, mixed with the sound of rustling handwriting. The early morning light slanted in from the window, illuminating most of the somewhat dark carriage. They had gradually entered a safe area. Outside the carriage, a group of white horse cavalry and fully armed guards were walking forward. These cavalry were led by a Type -1 totem division. They were riding on horseback with their heads held high and their chests held high. They were dressed in white armor and looked proud and handsome. Garen looked sideways at the cavalry outside. Are we almost at the Xinangfa defense line? He asked in a low voice. Angel across from him shrugged and carefully moved his injured shoulder. When she heard the question, she nodded. Even the patrol cavalry showed up, so it must be fast. According to the map, we can arrive in the afternoon. She paused. Leela chatted with them for a while, and actually asked about the situation of the defense line. Tell me. The Xinangfa defense line is mainly patrolled by the Totem Division with elite soldiers, and then builds sentry towers and forts every 200 kilometers for the Totem Divisions to be stationed. A fort is in charge of a school officer Totem Division, and there are at least 10 Type 2 totems. Almost all of humanity's most elite forces are on this line of defense, Angel explained, taking off the bandages on his shoulders in circles. These cavalrymen were also shocked when they heard that Vindman Manor fell. Vindman Manor is interdependent with the fortress here. It is one of the 68 forward strongholds on the front line. Now that it has been destroyed, we must move back. Adjust the defense line slightly and wait for subsequent troop support. Angel gritted his teeth, took off the bandage, then picked up a cotton swab and dipped it in alcohol to disinfect the wound. I heard that not only the Vindman Manor was destroyed, but the nearby Kinhe Villa was also destroyed, and no one inside survived. I think the people from the Black Sky Society are making big moves. She endured the pain and wrapped the new bandage around herself. By the way, the matter about Titan City has spread throughout the entire human safe zone. Not only the Black Domain Dragon Eagle King Duke of Titan City, there are hundreds of kingdoms and thousands of cities in Eastern Continent, and only 12 cities have been preserved. They are now divided into 6 major safety zones. Do you know which 6 major ones they are? Angel was very interested. Which 6? Garen smiled and asked calmly. You're quite stable. Angel glanced at him in surprise. The Titan district with Titan City as its core is called the Black Territory because it is protected by the Grand Duke of the Black Territory. With Titan City as the center, the 12 surrounding cities have been recovered. Then there is Prince Alexander of Glory City, the brother of King Ennet and the eldest son of Prince Tangula. He is known as the Black Prince. With Glory City as the core, he recovered 10 surrounding cities, which happen to be a complete basin defense. Circle. It is called Dragon Domain. Angel drank some water and continued. There is another one, Queen Joan Annis. She was once hailed as a flower that never fades. She is a peerless beauty. Unexpectedly, she is actually an extremely powerful totem master. She occupies Rainbow City and uses it as the core. She was next to Xenia and had conquered 15 cities. This queen was hailed as the Queen of Blood by those boring poets. The area she protected was called the Rainbow Territory. These are just the 3 major safe zones. What else are there? Garen asked while calculating the formula. There are also safety zones centered on the royal capitals of the 3 major powers: Kuwaitan, Shanya, and Enite. The 3 major powers have established huge safety zones with their royal capitals as the core. 3 major imperial defense circles, and the Black Territory, Dragon Territory, and Rainbow Territory are now the 6 human gathering places in the entire East Continent. The rest of the places are a dead land. They are all mutant creatures and nest creatures. Garen smiled and said nothing. The so-called place of death was just a term for the general public. In fact, the gathering places such as Black Sky Club and Daihua Club are not death places. In troubled times, heroes emerge. This is indeed true, Lala whispered as she served the brewed coffee. I also heard from a sister in the cavalry that there are many powerful totem masters emerging among the people. I've also heard that it's very lively now. We in Khawatan have several powerful totem masters who just became famous. Angel suddenly became interested. The 2 of them left Garen aside and chatted alone. Garen shook his head and continued to calculate his model equations with his head down. As he obtained some classic books from Gylasi, his understanding and research on totems became more and more in-depth. In the process of feeling the resonance stone, he vaguely combined it into the totem knowledge system, and actually gains something else. As long as he goes to the royal capital this time and takes out the research notes and subject books of Shia's father Vindman, his research level should be improved by several levels. It is estimated that the secret of the crystal deducer can be unlocked. In any case, Vindman's research has reached a very in-depth level. Compared with other research places, even the Mahakala of the Black Sky Society, the old immortals from the Earth Flower Society, and even the three major countries. The three major agencies around him are not much different. At most, they are in different directions. This is also the root of why Vindman has caused so many troubles. Galen believed that as long as he found this research knowledge, he would definitely be able to find a way to completely control the crystal deduction device. But the most important thing now is the evolution of the black-striped white tiger. He put down the pen and felt the status of the black-striped white tiger in the storage. The black crystal ring worn on the ring finger of the left hand is the storage device of the white tiger with black stripes. After releasing the black-striped white tiger and eating a few bites of the spotted crystal, Garen put it back into the ring, following the laws of evolution. You have to wait 5 hours for the crystal to be completely digested and absorbed. He took out his pocket watch and checked the time. Exactly 5 hours. Ignoring the two people who were still chatting beside him, Garen directly focused his gaze on the totem bar below his field of vision. White tiger with black stripes, the first form totem, which can be improved evolution success rate, 11% potential points consumed, 700%. Abilities, tail whip, piercing bite. After checking the potential points, after killing Guy Li and some other low-level totem masters, the potential points are now over 200 points. According to the evolution rules of the core totem of the black-striped white tiger, it takes more than 100 points to carry out a major activation evolution. The black-striped white tiger cannot evolve small fragments of genes, and can only continue to activate large fragments with potential points, which also consumes its potential points. Many reasons. Garen didn't hesitate at all, his eyes fixed on the icon of the white tiger with black stripes. 3 seconds later. The potential points are like floods bursting from the dam, falling crazily. In just a few seconds, the potential point dropped by hundreds of points. Garen's face twitched and he felt extremely painful. This was a potential point that he had accumulated for a long time. If he didn't succeed, he would try it a few more times. Even if it returns to the potential point, part of it will be consumed and remain in the body of the black-striped white tiger. What a waste. If you are still such a waste after evolving, don't blame me for replacing you directly. Garen made a firm decision in his heart. Finally, 5 seconds later, the icon of the white tiger with black stripes gradually blurred, and Garen also retracted his gaze. If he didn't keep staring like this, he would have to accumulate 7 points again and again as before, which would be slower. It's better to reach the standard once and for all. He now understands that the evolution success rate displayed by the icon is the success rate of the gene fragment that is easiest to activate. And the potential points it displays are also the potential points that consume the least. After the potential point surged for more than 120 points, it finally stopped. After the icon of the black-striped white tiger was blurred for a while, it quickly became clear again. The potential points returned to the attribute column and increased crazily. Failed. Garen breathed out. Fortunately this time, he didn't show any need for other crystals. He calculated that one failure consumed 35 potential points. This made him feel extremely painful. It would take more than 120 points to activate a major activation. He thought about it before doing it again. The second time, after the black-striped white tiger icon was blurred, it became clear faster than the last time. It remained unchanged without any changes. Another 35 potential points were consumed. Garen has wasted 70 points of potential, and now only has more than 130 potential left. He simply did it again. After absorbing a large amount of potential points, the icon continues to blur, and then still failed. Garen breathed out, feeling extremely unhappy. Nearly 100 points were invested and nothing came of it, which made him even more unhappy with the black striped white tiger. I thought that since I had innate abilities, such an evolution would be easy, but I didn't expect that I was still too confident. The black striped white tiger has been unable to find a way to evolve after so many researchers' research attempts. How could it be possible for him to find a way to evolve casually now? Looking at the potential points that were no longer enough to evolve again, Garen fell into deep thought. Since the white tiger with black stripes is not feasible, we have to follow another plan. Apart from replacing the core totem in 5 years, there is another way. Now, after studying and researching various totem knowledge, he has initially understood a lot of knowledge in this area. He chose to fail with the black striped white tiger. He spent so many potential points but still failed. Even if he evolved, how powerful could a type 2 totem be? The top of the sky is like a 3-type totem. But what should we do if we evolve type 3 in the future? After careful consideration, Garen decided to give up the black striped white tiger. He took it for granted at first. The way to gain access to the core totem is to wait for 5 years, or to completely destroy the black striped white tiger. Garen narrowed his eyes. He had already decided to change the core totem. Destroying the core totem is a very difficult choice. Just destroying the totem light of the core totem will cause injuries and mental trauma to the totem masters. If the core totem is completely destroyed, especially if the 5-year adaptation time has not expired, the totem master will receive a powerful shock in an instant, and the power of the totem that merges with the core totem will be severely traumatized. To put it simply, even if the current Galen and the core totem are destroyed, people will be severely damaged. Totem masters are often physically weak, and 10% of them will even be on the verge of death in such an impact. Just consider it the price of my wrong choice. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 353. But when to replace it and what to replace is also a question Garen pondered in his seat. He has always had a very whimsical plan in his mind. Whether this plan will succeed or not depends on the research results during this period. Let's wait and see. If that plan succeeds, it won't matter whether it's the black striped white tiger or other cores, whether they have core totems or not. 5 days later. In the carriage, Galen stood alone in front of the experimental utensils, holding a test tube of light yellow liquid in his hand and shaking it gently. The midday sun from outside shone in, illuminating the entire carriage. Galen carefully inserted the test tube back into the test tube rack, then sucked a drop of red liquid from another test tube and dripped it into this test tube. Hiss! A burst of black smoke suddenly filled the test tube, and a heart-melting fragrance slowly spread out. Successful. Garen nodded with satisfaction. Using the two-headed lizard dragon serum separated by the centrifuge, the toxicity in it should be removed. He picked up the test tube of light yellow liquid and kept shaking it clockwise, as if there was some unknown law in his hand. Rolling up his sleeves, Galen exposed his right arm, picked up a prepared syringe, attached the needle, and began to draw the serum from the test tube. It wasn't until all the yellowish serum was sucked into the syringe that he took it out and flicked the needle tip. Laugh! Garen's left hand thrust downwards like lightning, stabbing into the vein of his right wrist with precision. The needle tip was slowly injected into the blood along the vein, and the serum sample of the two-headed lizard dragon merged into Galen's blood calmly. But then, a strong rejection reaction suddenly shook Garen's body. He threw away the syringe and stood there. All the blood vessels in his body began to swell slightly. On his neck, blue veins kept popping out, and blue blood vessels appeared faintly on his handsome face. Garen gasped for air, and sweat began to cover his forehead. So many biological serums have been studied, including the serum of the two-headed lizard dragon, the serum of wild creatures, and the petrified white dragon. Among them, the serum of wild totems is the most repellent, followed by the silver totems controlled by oneself. And among the silver totems, the petrified white dragon's blood is too toxic, so we can only choose the two-headed lizard dragon. This time we have diluted it to such a high concentration and removed some of the toxic proteins. The remaining serum is now very weak, so we should be able to succeed. Garen gritted his teeth, feeling his internal organs burning like a ball of fire. All the energy and blood in his body started running rapidly, trying to expel the serum injected into his body, but Garen suppressed this instinct. The peak state of Maiwu allows him to perfectly control his own blood flow, physiological reactions, etc. He controlled his own rejection reaction and allowed the injected serum to begin circulating rapidly around his blood circulation system. The serum mixes into the blood and soon becomes more and more dilute, lighter and thinner. After more than 10 minutes, Garen slowly breathed a sigh of relief and opened his closed eyes. The first step. As expected, it was successful. He clenched his fists and felt warm all over his body. The serum of the two-headed lizard dragon had penetrated into his blood system. This powerful serum is definitely an incomparable poison to ordinary people, but for a secret warrior like him with extremely strong chi and blood, the damage can be completely controlled within a controllable range. As long as this plan succeeds, I will be the core totem, and the core totem is myself. Garen looked at his right hand and couldn't help but recall the huge urban monster he had seen. Through research, he discovered that the silver creatures controlled by the deducer were actually controlled in the brain. The rest has no control at all. After many experiments, he made a crazy decision. This is what he is trying now. After putting away all the things used for injection and experimental equipment, Garen slowly sat down in his favorite carriage position. Start to close your eyes and feel what's going on inside you. Chi and blood circulated in his body in circles, and he could clearly feel that his body seemed to have some unclear signs of change. The blood vessels seemed to have a faint sheen where the serum flowed. This layer of luster is fleeting and is almost invisible if you don't pay attention to it. Garen rested for a while, feeling that his whole body was gradually returning to normal, and then he felt relieved. The human body is a balanced circulatory system. What he has to do now is to break the system and re-establish a stronger cycle. Lord Garen, it's time for lunch. Lala's voice came from outside. The convoy has been on the road for 5 days. There are many checkpoints along the way. The cavalry team around them changed 3 times. After learning that there were 3 nobles in the convoy, the leader of the cavalry team was also changed to a second type totem division, which showed that the government aspects of attention. Come right away. Garen stood up and walked out of the car. Another 6 days passed. During this period, after Galen successfully experimented with the serum, he began to continuously inject two-headed lizard dragon serum 1 tube a day. His body also began to slowly accept the toxicity of the serum. Under Galen's control, the rejection reaction quickly calmed down a lot as it adapted naturally. Garen did not take care of the core totem, but continued to repeatedly train his own body. The matter of the black-striped white tiger cannot be rushed, it must be done slowly. And the royal capital of Kuwaitan has finally arrived. The wheels of the carriage were turning vigorously. Garen sat in the driving seat and looked ahead from a distance. The orange-red sunlight in the evening shone on him, as if he was coated with a layer of golden red. On Garen's left arm stood a grey-white owl. The owl stretched out for more than half a meter, and clawed its arms hard with its sharp claws. It also moved its body from time to time, tightening and loosening its claws. This owl is the totem of Ansai in the Wild Hunt, a Type 2 totem of little use. Because Type 1 is the easiest low-level group to evolve, the evolved Type 2 has only one ability, which is night vision observation. Owls all use night vision, but their ability is stronger and they can see in darker places. Although this grey-feathered owl is of little use, but the claws are extremely sharp. Garen asked Ansai to release it and play with him. This totem with low ability consumes very little when released and can only be used as exercise. Ansai had nothing to object to. At the back of the car in front, Angel was sitting on the back of the car, with one knee raised and playing with a black dagger in his hand. Watching Garen play with the grey feathered owl in boredom. She had been seeing this situation for 2 days, and Garen was really bored. No one noticed that Garen's arm held by the owl was not covered by the light of the totem at all. While teasing the owl, Garen noticed the changes in himself. After removing the light of the totem, he put the green vine ball into the carriage and came into contact with the totem beast just by himself without any external objects. It was just as he expected. My body already has certain totem light attributes. After careful analysis, it should be the root cause. The totem master himself has been covered by the light of the totem for a long time, and he will definitely be in a situation like mine. He will develop resistance to the light of the totem. I just used the secret weapon and serum to greatly advance the process. The short time of becoming a spiritual light combining the two into one should be the key factor to speed up this process. But I am different from them. Garen stroked the owl's soft yet hard feathers, his eyes deep in thought. My current body, if you look at it in terms of totems, is already as strong as a totem. It doesn't count the light of the totem, the green vine ball, or the grip of the troll. It's just my own body. Garen gently shook his hand and let the owl fly away. The first step is very simple. As long as you have the ability to control chi and blood like me, as well as extremely strong physical fitness, plus the refining and poison removal of serum, you can reach my level. But the second step is much more troublesome. Garen kept thinking in his mind. In the process of studying crystal deducers and resonance stones, he had gradually improved the feasibility of his previous plan. Whether it was the Black Sky Society's silvering method or the special principle vibration of the resonance stone, combined with Garen's various knowledge and theoretical systems on the Earth and the secret martial world, the first step of the plan was quickly completed. Garen has never paid much attention to the cultivation of core totems, but has been preparing for this plan. Now the first step is finally completed. Now that the core totem, the white tiger with black stripes, was not feasible, he finally decided to put everything else aside and focus on completing his plan. The purpose of this plan is to completely transform his body into an uncontrollable silver totem. This idea gradually sprouted during constant chats with Leela. He flicked his skin lightly, and the intensity was indeed similar to the totem light of Type 1 totem, but it was at the weakest level. The so-called first type totem is actually a layer of totem light covering the surface of ordinary living things. This is the so-called first type totem, but the strength of the totem light is determined by the totem itself. Garen was not surprised at all as he gradually acquired the nature of the totem light. Whether it was the research knowledge of the Black Sky Society brought by Leela or the Little Vined Man research information obtained in the manor, such conjectures were mentioned. That is, letting the creature take on the nature of totem light. This is where silvering comes from. However, the silvering process is an abnormal process, and Vined Man chose to attach it to a foreign object and provide it to the human body. The direction Galen chose is the direction that all researchers have always wanted to succeed. That is, applying the power of the totem to strengthen oneself. This requires a strong enough body. Unfortunately, no one in this world, including master-level mortals, has a body as strong as his.